Listen, welcome everyone here to the bank. Fantastic to see such a big and diverse audience, actually. I was discussing that earlier on. And this event on economics education for a public purpose. I'm Andy Haldane. I'm the bank's chief economist, and the bank is over the moon, actually, to be hosting this event. So we all know over a decade ago now, that the global financial crisis caused a big reset in our economies and in our economic policies, the like of which we haven't really seen since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And as in the 1930s, the past decade has also seen a reset in the economics profession. And that's a reset that has been as necessary as it has been welcome. A reset in the issues being tackled, a reset in the models being used, even a reset in the language that economists like me deploy. And at the center of that refresh and that reset, I'm tempted to say at the core of that reset, has been the core project. Initiated by Wendy, of course, to my right, but which has benefited, I know, from huge amounts of collaboration and support from a huge number of people, many of whom are in this room today. One of the silver linings from any crisis, whatever form that crisis takes, is that it serves to pique public interest in the topics that are thrown up by that crisis. And the global financial crisis was no exception in this respect. That piqued huge amounts of interest and indeed no little amounts of criticism of economics, of economic issues, and of economic policy. Now, this interest, this public interest, is in fact a fabulous endowment that's shown up, for example, in larger numbers of students studying economics than has ever been the case in the past. But for the economics profession, us, to benefit from that windfall, it's super important that we find a way to invest that endowment of people and of public interest wisely. And doing so, I think, means that economics needs, at a minimum, to have the tools, to have the data, to have the techniques necessary to make sense of the issues that have piqued people's interest in the first place. Issues that have touched people's lives, and issues that have reshaped societies. Issues such as climate, such as inequality, such as AI and automation, issues such as longevity and diversity, to name but six, which I think, Wendy, will be discussed pretty extensively over the course of this afternoon. I think one of the great successes of the core project, one of the features that secured its success, both here in the UK and indeed internationally, has been its ability to provide students with the data, the tools, and the techniques that help them to make sense of just these signature societal issues of the day. And not just to make sense of them, as importantly, to think about what might be done in public policy terms to address those self-same issues. That's been done most recently, and funded by the Nuffield Foundation, and Tim is here, through its two ebooks, Economics, Society and Public Policy, and Doing Economics. I think importantly, these books are looking to engage not just the specialists, not just the experts, but a non-specialist, non-expert audience as well in the discussion of these issues that touch absolutely everyone's lives. So I think in providing those foundations, core ought to make, and I would say has made, a massive change, not just the quality of public debate about those issues, but also about what might be done policy-wise to fix them. So as an economist and as a policymaker, let me take this opportunity, Wendy and the team, to both thank and to congratulate you for the important work you've done so far. But your work is not yet done. Those signature issues, that endowment, is very far from being fully spent or invested yet. In some ways, those issues I mentioned, and many more besides, loom even larger today than they did back at the time of the global financial crisis. They remain mega questions to which at present we do not, as economists, have equivalently mega answers. And that's why when I give talks to our new graduate cohort here at the bank, I say I can promise you, in coming to the bank, nothing very much. Only one thing, actually, which is an important thing, which is that you couldn't have picked a better time in human history, possibly, to be thinking about this bundle of issues. They have never mattered more, and economics has never mattered more than just at the moment. And crucially, it's you, very much more than me, that will be providing solutions to those signature societal issues. And in public policy, in economics, that is as good as it gets. So Wendy, today I'm hoping we're going to hear from today's generation of students and hopefully some of tomorrow's generation of students. They will hold the key to unlocking those issues. And I hope later on today to hear more about CORE's own plans for tomorrow, of how you will build out on the fantastic foundation you have so far set, and how we'll, between us, among us, build that next generation of students that will tackle those challenges. Thank you all for listening. I'll pass to Wendy now.
Thank you very much, Andy. So we all have our work cut out for today and many days after today. So I'd just like to ask Tim Gardam from the Nuffield Foundation to say a word to kick us off as well.
Well, thank you, Wendy. And thanks to Andy and to the Bank of England for allowing us to have this occasion in such an august setting. And thank you all for coming. And thank you, above all, to Wendy and her team for having created what we're here to talk about. I'm Tim Gardam. I'm the Chief Executive of the Nuffield Foundation. And the Nuffield Foundation, like all funders, I suppose, loves to take credit for a project once it has proved a great success. But truth be told, in the case of CORE and Wendy's work and the work of the UCL team, and with their recently launched online courses and textbooks, it really is we who should be thanking her. Because this project has in many ways redefined for us how Nuffield can support successful programs for students in the future. And these programs have always been a key aspect of the Nuffield Foundation's work ever since it was set up in 1943. Because Nuffield was established as an independent foundation, and that principle of independence still threads its way through all that we do. But there's little point in being independent as a funder if you don't allow independence to those you fund, offering them the avenues and freedom to frame questions in ways that they may not get the opportunity to do elsewhere. And CORE's reframing of the teaching of economics and the interconnecting of economics with other disciplines in the social sciences is, I think, a great example of exactly that freedom. So I'm just going to spend a very short moment, if I may, putting this project into a context that explains why it's so important to Nuffield's overall purpose and why we hope to build further on this idea even as this phase reaches its conclusion. Because Nuffield funds social science research in the domains of education, justice and welfare, and we always look to an application's capacity to inform and influence public policy and professional practice. But the other flank of our mission is to build educational capacity so that individuals can make good decisions as a result of the evidence that research uncovers. For Nuffield, the interconnection between research and learning is indivisible. So if our research portfolio is our first pillar, then our second pillar is our funding of a number of student programs designed to shape students' capacities as they transition from the world of study to the world of work. And our programs introduce them to quantitative methods, and then how to apply these to make the reasoned judgments necessary as an informed citizen in today's data-driven society. And the third pillar of our work supports institutions such as the Ada Lovelace Institute on AI and Society, the Nuffield Council on Bioethics, and the Nuffield Family Justice Observatory that synthesize research evidence, convene different perspectives, and so shape the wider public conversation. And together, these add up to the overarching purpose of Nuffield, to advance social well-being by scientific research, and specifically, to advance educational opportunity. Now, CORE was not originally funded by Nuffield. Today's event is built on the shoulders of UCL's first CORE project, which had that straight-talking title, The Economy. You're probably all familiar with it, an interactive electronic textbook that sets out to turn economics teaching inside out. As Andy said, it arose from that growing dissatisfaction after the crisis in the teaching and studying of economics among teachers, employers, and especially students in the wake of that crisis. And I remember I was at Oxford at the time, and it was really quite a fierce debate and an urgent deliberation. So then Wendy approached Nuffield after the success of the original CORE economics project. She'd helped to rethink the teaching of economics to economics students. Her pitch was that they should now expand it to offer economics as a quantitative social science to those social science students who otherwise would avoid it in their syllabus. Now, I've reread this week Wendy's original application. This is an important document as it's what got her the money. It had, I have to say, the most terrible acronym, CORE EQUUS, EQUSS, teaching economics as a quantitative social science. It was an acronym that must have totally confused students who would have thought it was something to do with a play by Peter Schaffer. And I don't know how many unfortunate drama students inadvertently wandered into the classes, but I'm sure it did them a world of good. But apart from that, the application set out its case with a clear and urgent purpose: to break out of that cul-de-sac in social science teaching in universities, where policy-oriented students often find themselves having to choose between a quantitative course of study, economics, that is only minimally social in content, or a socially orientated course of study that provides little training in quantitative scientific methods. This would provide social science students, and over time others too, with the language, the skills, and the confidence to engage in reasoned and fact-based debate on policy issues. Now, Wendy's idea, whether she knew it or not, was in the mainstream of one of our founding objectives, because Nuffield for 6 decades has been known for its curriculum development, albeit in schools. There must be many here, myself included, who remember the Nuffield Maths and Nuffield Science courses over the past decades, and textbooks in the classroom and their refreshing practical and applied approach. And this CORE project that we funded stands absolutely in that tradition. Now, in a broad sense, it fits with the other Nuffield student programs, the Nuffield Research Placement Program, that creates research placements for 1,000 STEM students from disadvantaged backgrounds at the end of their first year in sixth form. It builds their quantitative and analytic skills over their summer holidays before they apply to university. But CORE was more directly linked with our other great project, the Q-STEP project, the £20 million initiative that we co-funded with the ESRC and HEFCE to embed quantitative skills in undergraduate social scientists in universities across the United Kingdom. And 2 Q-STEP centres, UCL and Bristol, were integral to the original application, and other Q-STEP centres have road-tested the materials: Nottingham, Oxford, Queen's Belfast, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Sheffield. And since then, over the past 3 years, they've brought in other collaborators from across universities in the United States and France. And so, though it might be not the most diplomatic way of putting it, and I wouldn't put it like this, some social scientists who are not economists might say that the CORE team has saved economics teaching from itself, because it presents economics not as a theoretical academic subject, but rather as an area of interest for anyone interested in their society. And its point of departure is how economics impacts the world we live in, what the policy issues are, and what policymakers can do in that context. And as you listen to Andy Haldane just now, you will realise that in many senses, he is Core's intellectual fairy godfather. But in the course construction, there is, to my mind, one wider point that's worth making. In any democracy, there is an increasing need for some fluency amongst its citizens in both the language of economics and the quantitative analysis of social policy, just as it is essential for the quantitative mind to recognise the force of moral sentiments and normative reasoning. In a society driven by digital technologies and a superabundance of data, that fluency requires a new level and complexity of translation between different disciplines. So when I dug out that full application from Wendy from 2016, it sets out this imperative. The programme, she writes, will be interdisciplinary by necessity, because, as the new paradigm makes clear, the central policy problems cannot be addressed by economics alone without reference to psychology, politics, sociology, history, and law, to which I would only dare to add philosophy, because it is the nature of digital technologies that they break down all sorts of boundaries, including subject boundaries. Their challenges and opportunities require an intellectual openness and a curiosity between the solutions-based hypotheses of data and other sciences, the wicked questions of social science, and the cultural, linguistic, and normative questions of the humanities. In this regard, Core, though a teaching resource, engages, I think, with one of the most difficult dilemmas of our research agenda. Every research proposal now bows to the shrine of interdisciplinarity. Yet we all know that working between disciplines requires a prior rootedness in just one. And the manner in which the Core team has constructed their course recognises this. It does not dilute the fundamentals of economics, but offers a different pathway through them. You could almost say that it goes some way to providing the hardcore for a 21st century version of the classical trivium of logic, grammar, and rhetoric. Trivium, of course, was derived from the Latin, the place where three roads meet. Similarly, Core recognises the interplay of different ways of thinking necessary to equip a mind for reasoning its way through the problems of the times which we're living through. So what next? There is something immensely satisfying to see this publication of a great fat tome by OUP. It's interesting how much of our research never seems to produce any product. But critically, all of the materials, as you know, are online and free to use. It therefore breaks down the barriers to learning and stands full square in the Nuffield mission of intellectual emancipation. And we want this context and this content to reach beyond the academy to anyone interested in the issues it addresses. The strength of Core is its adaptability. And now this attention, after far too long, is shifting from focusing solely on higher education to improving further education. There must be opportunities to rescope this wealth of material across educational boundaries for schools and lifelong learning, because what it offers is essential for a productive life, not only economically, but as a citizen too. And I very much hope that the Nuffield Foundation can play a part in where this goes next. And I can only repeat my thanks to Wendy and now ask her to continue wherever we go next.
Thank you very much, Tim. So I'm just going to spend a few moments just kind of setting the context of what we've been doing over the last 3 years in the project so generously funded by the Nuffield Foundation. Taking up Tim's point right at the end, which is that we need to take what we've been building in this project out beyond the classroom, and this is a very clear example of it. So this is now a reading group on National Public Radio in the United States with the host, David Brancaccio. He claims to have 14 million listeners, and they're reading through Economy, Society, and Public Policy, 1 unit a week. And so far, there are, as of the 24th of February, there are 7,000 people who have signed up to be part of this reading group. So you can, he doesn't like names either. He says he would have called it High Definition Econ, or How to Be an Econ Influencer. But apart from suggesting new names, he's giving it a boost every week, and you can go to the website and have a look what's happening there. So our primary commitments are to changing economics, not only the content, but we want to support the involvement of more women and underrepresented groups, to provide free knowledge, and to change the pedagogy so that we can create a student and problem-centered way of learning. All of this is not just about the students in the classroom, this is about building an informed democracy. So we can ask the question, and Andy has kind of preempted some of this by saying, what are the pressing problems that economics can address? And what we've done in this project from very early on is to find out, ask people what they think the pressing problems that economists should be addressing are. So one of the first attempts to do this, or an early attempt to do this, actually took place in this institution, this very institution, with the 98 initial recruits that year of Andy's new intake of students. So this is 98 new recruits to the Bank of England into their graduate program. So just imagine in your mind how the students are going to answer this question. All right? You got it in your mind? This is what they said. And you can find there all of the topics and more than the ones that Andy mentioned. So it's a very rich set of issues dominated there by inequality, and then you can see Brexit rearing its head. We've done this on a larger scale, so thinking about the nearly 4,500 first-year undergraduates. So a very different group of people, those just coming in to study an economics course for the first time in 25 universities. Again, let's see what they said. So these are the pressing problems that, that people in these two samples think that economists should be addressing. But there are some people missing from those places, missing from that cohort, and missing from the classrooms. These 300,000 women that we calculate on the back of an envelope in the United States that are not in the classroom, because this is an overwhelmingly male field. How do we get them back? Maybe it's partly because of what they think economics is, what they think it's about. And here's what one woman said who actually stuck it out in economics. She said, "I hoped economics would give me a way to describe and predict human behavior through mathematical tools. After semesters of study, I had many mathematical tools, but all the people I wanted to study had disappeared from the scene." This was a failure of economics as it was being taught. From the lecturer side, then we have this comment that economics students, when asked about the economy, presumably the subject of our study, their reasoning is no different from the wisdom of taxi drivers, and sometimes they're a bit less well informed. And then we have the wisdom of Tim Harford, which is drawing this link between what we teach in economics, economic policy making, and democracy. So from the student's point of view, the problem was that economics was hard, boring, and unrelated to any questions they wanted to answer. From the teaching point of view, it was actually easy teaching a standard course, but the problem was it was unrelated to the research they were doing, their practice as economists. And economics graduates are typically seen as technically competent, but they simply couldn't talk about the economy or economic problems with their other colleagues trained in different disciplines. So that's what we were trying to do with CORE. And this is how we linked those issues, those pressing issues that economics and economists should be addressing with the themes in CORE's work in economy, society, and public policy, and the economy. One way of thinking about this is to take a step back and think about the conventional benchmark of economics. What do I mean by that? I mean, well, economics has to take a stand about what people are like. What kind of social interactions constitute economics? What are the sorts of information and contracts that we should be studying? What's the role of power? And how should we evaluate economic outcomes? People, on the conventional benchmark, we have Homo economicus, this all-seeing, far-sighted, self-interested actor. And the CORE benchmark, and the new benchmark in the way the best of economics is conducted now, is of a much richer view of what people are like. And we can do the same thing. We can talk about the role of nature in economics. not as external to the economy, as in the standard benchmark, but the economy as part of the biosphere. And I could go down through the list. This is just to give you a taste. If you're tempted, then you can look at a more fully developed line of argument that tries to pull together what we've been doing in the core project and how this is really changing the benchmark, establishing a new benchmark for what economics is about and how we can use it to address those crucial problems. And we're delivering on this for undergraduates, for apprentices in high schools, for MSc and MPA students, and for adult learners, although there's much more work to be done to bring the resources to those different potential groups of learners. And here we've got Simon Greaves, who's here, who wrote this in an article in the FT very recently. You can see what he said. He found the approach of ESPP in his course at Birkbeck surprising against the background of his initial training in economics. So what's our reach? This gives you some idea, some examples of universities where core is being taught. And in the UK, so if we think about where we were 3 years ago with just a handful of universities using it, now we have 40 universities in the UK who are teaching with core. So what is the public purpose of economics education? We want more curious students who are challenged by history, data, and models. We want to use that to create a stronger democracy through engaged and articulate citizens. And we want more employable students equipped with knowledge of context, some knowledge of history, where the economy is situated, equipped with data handling and visualization skills, and with useful models that they feel they own and that they can deploy and talk about with others. We're hoping to produce better policy, and that's going to require more diversity among policymakers, not just economists. So these are the 300 women who are missing. We want to get them back, and maybe moving to this new benchmark, this new way of thinking about economics, how it relates to other social sciences and indeed to philosophy, maybe this is going to be more appealing to a more diverse audience in economics. Lots of people have been involved in producing the public goods from all around the world with very different kinds of specializations in economics. And I just wanted to do one last thing, which was to draw attention to doing economics, which is the thing that the Nuffield Foundation got kind of two for the price of one, which is the online ebook, which provides a way for students to learn how to handle data, analyze data, visualize data. And here we've got Emily. Emily Powell was a student of core. This is like the core community, the core pathway. Was a student of core in an introductory economics course at Birkbeck. At the launch of this project 3 years ago, Emily spoke about her experience in that course. She's since been a member of the Equus Project Advisory Board. And she's provided very compelling feedback on doing economics, things that we've done well, things that we can improve on. And I just wanted to draw attention to one of the things that she found interesting and useful in doing economics, and it relates to the question of statistical significance. So she says, from a student perspective, it seems like a bold but excellent decision to move away from the idea of statistical significance. This is a very live debate in the natural sciences, much less so, in fact, in economics, but we have taken it on in doing economics. But this is a project about creating materials that are improved as people use them. So we got some feedback on this very issue of statistical significance from one of our users and readers, Mark Schaefer from Heriot-Watt University. He pointed out some problems with the way we'd tackled this. He recognized we'd made an effort, but he found some mistakes. Our team, so Eileen Tipo, Ralph Becker from Manchester, Margaret Stevens, Sam Bowles, worked to improve our treatment, and that was his comments were on the 20th of January. The revised online Doing Economics went live on Monday. So in just over a month, we have been able to react to that constructive feedback about how we can build a better, more convincing resource and get it out there and being used. At the launch of the core project on the 11th of November 2013, you can see a very particular characteristic of the audience there. I'd like you just to look around the room today. So I think we have in this room a much more diverse audience than was assembled at the very launch event in the Treasury at that time. And this is a diversity not just in the kind of visible, in the faces we have in the room, but also in terms of the people we've got engaged in this project. So you can see we've not only got economists in the room, we've got lots of non-economists in the room, we've got students, we've got people from educational regulators, from exam boards, from the government, Bank of England, and so on. So I think we're perfectly placed to tackle the question that we're here to address today.